Good afternoon. Welcome to the second of our Uni4Me live sessions, and I'm delighted to say that I've been joined by Sanar Kabir today from the University of Law. And Sanar is an outreach officer, so spends a lot of time going out and talking to other people. Sorry, I'm getting an echo from my YouTube there. That I've been joined by.
Me too.
Sorry about that, technology in action. So this afternoon, Sanar's going to talk about two subjects with us. First of all, she's going to talk about business, and then she's going to go on to law, and then we'll have a few questions at the end of her presentation. So I'll pass over to Sanar now.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for that introduction. We are going to have a little talk about business first, then we're going to go into law, and then we'll see if there's any really interesting bits that we can talk about after that. So let's get straight into it. So just a little bit of a welcome from the University of Law. You may have heard of us, you may not have. If you haven't, then obviously the name the University of Law is going to sort of make you think, okay, they're a law specialist university, sounds good. But we actually do more than just law. So we've got the main sort of undergraduate degree courses on the screen right now. So obviously there's law, but we also have degrees in criminology, in policing, so subjects that are closely related to law, in the same sort of field. We've got a new politics course as well, which is set to be really interesting. And the University of Law also has a business school too. So we've got business degrees, we've got accounting and finance degrees. You can do bits of marketing as well. So there's plenty of things for you to sort of get involved with at the University of Law. We're not just a law university. And the other really good thing is that you can sort of mix and match as well. So if you're not sure, if you're not 100% sure whether you want to do, say, criminology or law or business or law, you can actually do a joint honours. So you can do law and business, for example. So just a little bit of sort of key features of our business courses then, because that's what we're talking about first. Something that's really important to the University of Law as a whole is our focus on employability. What I mean by employability is how appealing a graduate is, how appealing a student is to prospective employers. So how good your skills in communication are, how good your skills in giving presentations, in solving problems and things like that. And that's something that we embed in all of our courses, specifically within business as well. So the way we do that is by developing key skills and competencies within all of our modules. And what that means is you'll be doing things like giving mini presentations. You're going to be sort of asked to solve real life problems within different businesses, looking at different corporate areas as well. And all of these things will provide you with the academic background, but then also the practical knowledge as well of how to tackle this in an employment setting. So it sets you up for having a job, a career at the end of the degree. A lot of our business courses are Cmi accredited as well. And what this means is it's the benchmark for management and leadership skills, which is really, really important for a lot of careers. You want to show your employers, that you've got the skills to manage, to be a leader. We also try to show a really, really good understanding, as I say, just of the key aspects of business as well. So it's not just about like the skills and how to succeed practically, but you also get the academic background knowledge as well, in a whole range of different business types, which means that you're well equipped to sort of go into whatever sort of area suits you best. Most business courses develop a solid grounding in key elements such as business theory, management, economics, entrepreneurship, marketing, accounting, and business law. So all of those really, really key foundational areas that you need in order to be successful in business. That's what we try and cover in our degree courses. And then just really quickly, I'm not going to read them all out, but just a list of our degrees in our business school. So business management and then a couple of variations there. And then we've also got some other related degrees as well, such as digital marketing and accounting and finance. All the details of these, including the entry requirements, the sort of modules that we study, that's all on our website. So if you are interested, please visit our website and get a little bit more info that way. But I'm not going to bore you with it just now. And then finally, just a little bit of info in terms of what sorts of careers that business graduates can go into. And this is not an exhaustive list at all. This is just, you know, part of what you can go into. There's plenty of different areas you can go into. So you can be an accountant or an auditor. You can go into HR, into human resources. You can be an insurance underwriter. There's loads of different sort of things there as well. Okay, so let's get to the actual taster now. So we sort of, there's sort of two, I guess, key areas of business, and just want you to think about now, if you're interested in business, just want you to think about, are you sort of more interested in joining an established business and sort of adding to that business and growing with it and maybe making some change from the inside? So there's plenty of businesses and organizations out there that might come to mind for you, depending on your interests. Or sort of the other route is, I suppose, creating a startup, a small business startup, and building a business from the ground up. So those are two sort of key paths, I guess, key routes, and just want you to have a think about what you might most be interested in doing. What we're going to focus on today, because we don't have that much time, we're just going to look at one aspect of established businesses and what they may need to think about. However, this is applicable to startup businesses, to entrepreneurs as well. So this is something really, really important for all business people to sort of bear in mind. On the screen, you should be able to see the basic sort of structure of any business. And we can see right in the middle, right at the top, we've got the business, and then we've got sort of different strands coming across. So I'm gonna go through a couple of them right now. So you might have heard of HR, or human resources. This is a sort of people-focused communication sort of department, and human resources is where you sort of manage the well-being and the development and the training of the employees in a business. HR is also sort of responsible for recruiting new staff as well, so putting out job adverts and potentially interviewing new candidates as well. Finance, if you want to work in the finance sector, as you can probably guess, you need to be quite good with numbers, and you need to have a really good attention to detail as well, because like the smallest number out of place or the smallest sort of pound sign out of place can have really, really massive ramifications to a business. So that's something that, you know, if you're that kind of person, then finance might be somewhere you want to go. We've got marketing as well. So marketing is about advertising, about influencing, about presenting ideas in a really, really interesting way in order to attract your target audience. We've got operations, which is all about having a really solid teamwork ethic, being logically minded, being good with processes, and sort of looking at continuously improving how good the business is. We have logistics, which is quite similar. There's a lot of overlap with operations. So again, it's all about communicating really well and working together with other teams. And finally, technology. Again, as you'd imagine, pretty self-explanatory. You'd have to be quite good with computers, quite good with systems, good at software, good at troubleshooting. But of course, there is an overlap with quite a few of these as well. What we're going to focus on is marketing. And I think marketing is a really, really interesting one, because it's sort of, without good marketing, a business is going to fail, right? So if you could have the most amazing business idea ever, you can have really, really good staff, really good resources and facilities, but if you're not marketing that idea to the right people in the right way at the right time, then you're not going to make any profit and your business isn't really going to go anywhere. So marketing is really, really key in order to make all the other little strands work as well. So I just want you to think about what comes to mind when you see the word marketing. What do you think of when it comes to marketing? Do you think of advertisements? Do you think of doing market research? Do you think it's really sort of controlling? Do you feel that it's a little bit unethical? It might make you think of sometimes this is definitely what I think. Sometimes I might be sort of thinking about a new product or a new service or something like that. Say I'm talking to my friend about a new dress I really want. I open up Instagram and lo and behold, there's an advert for a dress, and it's like, how did that happen? So sometimes there's a little bit of that, but then there's other types of marketing too. Just want you to think about that. Now, the Wikipedia definition marketing is sort of concerned with consumer behavior, so customer behavior. And this is part of that Wikipedia definition. So marketing is the study of individuals, groups, or organizations, and all the activities associated with the purchase, use, and disposal of goods and services, including the consumer's emotional, mental, and behavioral responses that precede or follow these activities. Phew, that was quite wordy. That's quite a wordy way of essentially saying that marketing is all about understanding your target market, knowing what they respond to in a positive way, what they don't like, so that you can then market your product or market your organization to them in an effective manner. Another question I just want you to think about. So when you're about to make a purchase, be that for some sort of service or be that for some sort of goods, what are the things that you think about? Do you think about, for example, how quickly the item is going to be delivered to you? Is that something that's important to you? Is the brand important to you? So are you more likely to trust a really well-known big brand that has shops in every sort of neighborhood? Or are you sort of really interested in small independent businesses, things that maybe don't have so much of a brand name? Is the aesthetics important to you? So what the product looks like. If you're sort of buying some perfume, or if you're buying some clothes or a bag or something like that, is it really important to you what it looks like rather than what it functions as? Do you think about ethics? So do you think about whether the coffee or chocolate that you're buying is fair trade? Do you think about sort of animal testing as well if you're looking at cosmetics? Is that something that's important to you? Do you think about if it's on offer, if there's a buy one, get one free, is that important to you? Is that more likely to make you sort of purchase a product? What about influence? What about celebrity endorsements? What about customer reviews? Does that sort of influence whether you're going to buy something or not? And how good the website looks, or how secure the website is. So there's lots of different things here that you might actually consider without even knowing it, all these things that you might think about when you're making a purchase. I know for me, for example, looking at reviews is super important. I spend quite a bit of time reading other people's reviews, especially on Amazon, to make sure that something is going to be useful. So we're going to look mainly at ethics, or we're going to have a quick look at ethics. And some of the things that may come under sort of ethics are as follows. So again, animal testing, whether something's fair trade, whether something is vegan or plant-based, whether there are employee perks or benefits for the employees, whether the company is linked with any charities or whether they donate a percentage of their proceedings to charity, whether there's diversity within their employees, and whether or not their organization is a sustainable one. That's really, really important today. I think, like, more than ever, it's becoming really important. A lot of people are really, really interested in sustainability and sort of the environmental impact of products. So think about how, if you're interested in going into business or in starting your own business, or sort of just thinking about it, think about how you can sort of use these to your advantage. So how can a business use ethics to their advantage, which doesn't sound very ethical itself, but it's a business at the end of the day. So we're trying to market appropriately. So when it comes to animal testing, for example, I think in the last couple of decades, probably the last 20, 30 years, it's become really important for a lot of brands to show that they are against animal testing, because they understand that a lot of their customers, a lot of the general public, are against animal testing. So if we think of like a really well-known brand like Superdrug, for example, Superdrug are very clear in saying that none of their own brand products involve animal testing in any way. And you can usually see like the little icon of, I think it's a little rabbit hopping to sort of signify that. And that in itself is really good branding, because when I go into Superdrug, I just need to sort of look at the back. I don't even need to read anything. All I need to do is watch out for that little picture of that rabbit, and I know it's against animal testing. So I know I can make that purchase ethically. Charity is also a really important one. So a lot of businesses donate to charity. For example, some booksellers might say, for every 50 books that we sell, we will plant a tree to sort of offset perhaps the deforestation that happens when you're making paper and making books. So again, that makes you more likely to purchase from that organization because they're involved in charity like this. So these are really, really interesting things to think about. And finally, social media influence is really important as well, I would say. And obviously, it's sort of in terms of, is there a celebrity endorsing a product? So I'm sure there are plenty that you can think of. Or is it a celebrity's line themselves? And I'm sure a lot of people are well aware of the Kardashian/Jenner family, and how they've got their own range of many things, like cosmetic things, clothing and stuff like that. And if we think about how popular Kylie Jenner's range of like lip products was, for example, really, really, really popular. And let's be honest, it wouldn't have been as popular if she wasn't already a famous celebrity, right? So it's really, really important to think about how you can use online influence, whether it's celebrity or not, but how you can use online influence or social media influence to sort of market your organization, to market your product. It's one of the most influencing factors on how people make their purchases. And as I say, sometimes just when you're using social media, based on the sort of post that you like or the sort of post that you interact with, you're probably going to be given certain adverts as well. It's also something that's become even more to the forefront recently is that it is now a legal requirement for a brand to, if you're hiring an influencer to sort of market one of your products or to market one of your services, that influencer has to be very clear in saying that this is an advert. So they can't just sort of trick you subliminally into making a purchase. They have to clearly say that this is an advert. So you might see on a lot of influencer or celebrity pages that when they're talking about a certain, say, clothing brand or a certain, I don't know, food or like, a sport or anything like that, you'll see hashtag ad or hashtag advertisement quite a lot. This is because it's now a legal requirement. And if you don't do this, you can get into quite a little bit of trouble. I think let's keep it there for our sort of business route. And what I'm going to go into now is, if I can just switch my screen around, I would now like you to join me looking at our law taster. So hopefully you can see a different PowerPoint slide up right now. And we're going to take a little bit of a turn and think about law. Specifically, we're going to look at something that I find really, really, really interesting, which is witness statements. I don't know if you're like me and you really enjoy things like detective shows or like mystery crime thrillers and things like that. I love that sort of thing. So for me, this is a really, really interesting topic. Before we delve into that though, just a really quick run through of the sorts of courses that we have at the University of Law. So again, an LLB essentially is a law degree. So if you know that you want to become a lawyer in the future, either a solicitor or a barrister, you should aim to do a degree that has LLB at the front. Some of the degrees, if you've sort of started researching university courses already, you'll see that there are different letters at the start of a degree name. So some will have LLB if it's a law course. A lot of courses, however, will say BA or BA Honours. That stands for Bachelor of Arts, or there will be a BSc, which is a Bachelor of Science. So there's different types of degree, and they're all fantastic depending on what you want to go into. However, if you want to become a lawyer, then it's best to do a degree that has LLB, because those are the ones that prepare you to become a lawyer. So LLB essentially just means law degree for short, and these are some of the different ways that we offer law degrees at the University of Law. So traditionally it's a 3-year degree, but if you're in a rush, you can do it in 2 years. So we've got an accelerated 2-year course. And then, like I said earlier, you can sort of mix and match your degree as well. So if you can do law just straight by itself. If you're absolutely sure that law is your passion, law is your interest, you can just do law. But if you want to sort of keep your options a little bit wider, or you're not entirely sure what you want to go into, there's a few options there as well. So we've got some on the slide. We've got law with business. You can do law with criminology. You can do law with politics. So there's lots of different options there for you as well. Again, all the entry requirements and all the details are on the website. And also we have online study too, which is something that we've always had an online campus. So I'm from our London Bloomsbury campus. We've got campuses in Birmingham, Manchester, all over the country, but we've also got an online campus too. We've had an online campus for quite a while, but obviously in the last year or so, with the pandemic, with a lot of things sort of moving online, the online campus has become even more important. So yeah, you can also study completely online. A few key features of our law degrees. I'm gonna point out what I think is the most important one, which is that you are taught by qualified lawyers. So your lecturers and your tutors, they're not just academically really good at law. So it's not just that, they've got law degrees, they've got masters, they're actually lawyers themselves. So the vast majority of our lecturers used to be lawyers or are even still lawyers, and they work as a lawyer part-time, and they teach at university part-time as well. This is amazing, because think about the sort of real life experiences you're going to hear about in your classes, right? Rather than getting things from a textbook, you're actually going to hear it from a real life lawyer, which is really, really important for you. Everyone studying an LLB or a law degree has to study these 7 modules. And this isn't just with the University of Law, this is with all universities in the country who want to study law. You will need to study these 7 key areas. I'm just going to go through them very, very quickly. So EU law is all about the law of the European Union. Even though we've now left the EU, a lot of our law is still sort of influenced or tied to European Union law. So it's still an important module that students need to know about. Tort law. So tort law is a civil wrong that causes somebody harm or that causes someone to suffer a loss. This can include something like assault or negligence or trespassing, because all of those things can harm another person. We have contract law. Contract law regulates contracts and legal agreements in the UK. And that can be anything from the contract when you sign up for Spotify to a contract when you're buying a house. Land law is all about ownership and responsibility of property. And again, this can include houses, this can include buildings, this can include like green spaces, parks, trees, all sorts of land. Public law is all about the laws that govern how individuals and the government interact. Equity and trusts is a little bit more financial, so trust can include things like charitable cases. And finally, criminal law is probably something that is, you know, the most, everyone's a little bit more familiar with criminal law. That's what the majority of like TV shows that come to law are sort of involved with. But obviously that's not the only thing you study. There's lots of other types of law, and depending on your personal interests or what sort of career you want to go into, what sort of lawyer you want to be, you can choose different modules as well. So the optional modules that you choose are called electives, and these are just some of those. So human rights is very popular, something that a lot of people are interested in. Family law, so that could include things like divorce cases or custody cases. Intellectual property, employment law, access to legal services, trade law, and criminal litigation and evidence. So these are just some of the other modules that you can study at the University of Law. That was a snazzy animation. Okay, and then assessments. So what's quite interesting about the University of Law, again, is that your assessments sort of reflect the sort of work that you would be doing if you were a lawyer. So the majority of assessments traditionally are sort of written based, so it's coursework or exams, which of course are really, really important, and it's a really good way of testing a student's knowledge in a certain area. However, as we all know, those aren't the only 2 things that you're going to be doing in the real world. In fact, it's very rare that, you know, apart, like outside of education, that you'll be asked to sit an exam, right? Or to do a bit of coursework based on a particular question. So our assessment methods try to reflect as much as possible what you'll be doing in real life. So with some of our modules, for example, where we would need exams, what our tutors do is sort of make it more of a timed case study. So you'll be given information about a case, you'll be given a case study, then you'll be asked to sort of solve that case or come up with a defense or come up with a prosecution, just like you would be if you were a lawyer, and you'd have to do this within a timed restraint. So that's sort of where the exam or coursework element comes in. There's also a lot of oral examination too, and that could be through presentations, through group work and things like that. And again, as a lawyer, it's really, really important that your communication is up to par, both written communication and your spoken communication too. Okay, let's get into the fun stuff. So with witness statements. So I just want you to have a think about why someone, well, actually, let's go back. Let's think about being in court. Let's paint a picture for ourselves. We're in court for a criminal trial. So someone's been sort of arrested and tried for assault, let's say, and there's going to be some witnesses to that assault. Some of the witnesses are going to be better, some of the witnesses are going to be worse than others. Think about why someone might be a bad witness. Why might somebody be a bad witness? Excuse me. So for example, if I asked you what you had for breakfast this morning, you'll probably be able to tell me. If I asked you what you had for breakfast on the 15th of February, you're probably less likely to be able to tell me. So that's one thing. It could just be memory, or it could be the length of time that makes you a bad witness. If the event happened a long time ago, you're less likely to remember it very accurately, right? So that's one thing. What else might make you a bad witness? It might be that you're influenced by the kind of crime. So if it's a violent crime, then your memories might be a little bit clouded and they might become a little bit more violent. You might be a little bit biased. If you know the defendant or if you know the victim, you might be a little bit biased and it might make your memory change a little bit. So there's a lot of different reasons why somebody might be a bad witness. And now we're going to have a look and see if you are a bad witness. So I'm going to pose a few questions to you and I want you to have a think. What color was the wall painted in that image? If you think it's a little bit unfair that I'm asking you, good. I didn't tell you that you were going to be asked questions about this, but that's how the real world works. If a crime happens, if something happens, nobody tells you 5 minutes beforehand, by the way, something's going to happen, so make sure you remember it. It just happens and you have to remember it. So first question, what color was the wall painted? Secondly, how many people were in the room? So how many people were in that room? Final question, what color was the arresting officer's jacket? Now, obviously, I can't see your answers, but hopefully you've had a little think, maybe you've written it down, and let's go back to the image and see. So what color was the wall painted? Just looks like a standard white, doesn't it? Or a cream. How many people were in the room? So in the picture, you can see 3. But does that mean there's only 3 people in the room? What about the person who's taking the picture? That would be at least 4. What about if there's people to the side which aren't in the photo? That'll be maybe 5, 6, 7. So it's actually a leading question. We don't actually know. What color was the arresting officer's jacket? When I asked that question, you might have automatically said black. But actually, when we look back at the image, there is no jacket. So again, that's a leading question. And it's really, really important, if you are a lawyer, to make sure that your witnesses won't be led astray by questions like this when they're on the stand. So you need to really prep and really train your witnesses to stick to their story and not deviate, no matter what the other side say, no matter what they ask you. And this is a really, really good way of sort of testing how good a witness statement is. So I'm going to keep it on the slide. I'm going to keep it on the screen for a little bit. If you are really interested in law and specifically in statements and witness statements, it might be a good idea to sort of screenshot this or take a note of it and look it up later. So Turnbull is essentially a test for the police to use to sort of test how good a witness is. And we can sort of use this mnemonic. So if you go down the side, we've got the word advocate spelt with a K instead of a C, and each of those letters sort of stand for something. So A for the amount of time that the witness observed the perpetrator for. If the witness saw the perpetrator for a long time, they're more likely to remember it. If they only saw them for 5 seconds, they're very, very unlikely to remember anything. Let's go near the bottom and look at T. So T, the time lapse since viewing the incident. This is what we were talking about before. If it was only, yesterday, then you're more likely to remember it than if it was a month ago. So these are all really, really important ways to sort of test how good your witness is going to be. So now I'm going to have a little mini case study that we're going to look at together. I want you to imagine that you are on the prosecution team for that scenario that we thought up a few minutes ago. So we're in court for somebody who's been tried for ABH, for actual bodily harm, so for assault. We've got 3 potential witnesses here, and we need to see whether those witnesses are good or whether they're bad. Let's have a quick look at the defendant. So the defendant is on the left there. Her name is Faye Brown. She's female, her age is 26, she's in custody. The offense she's being tried for is ABH, or actual bodily harm, and the predicted sentence is community order. Let's have a look at the incident and see what's happened. So I'm just going to read it out to you, like the case study. So there is this lovely house in a quiet area, and the person who lives at the house was throwing a house party just with a group of friends. So a large group had come to their house for a barbecue with food and music, some drinks, and some of them ended up staying really late, like late into the night. The host of the party was hit in the face towards the end of the night, and it resulted in an injury. We'll have a look later. It's not too graphic, don't worry. Let's have a look at the timeline of the event. So at around 2 o'clock, the party started, and that's when guests started to arrive. The defendant, so the person who's been accused, the suspect, arrived at 2:30. And we can see her there in the red dress. And the host is there on the right with the denim sort of jacket and the black jeans. So at 10 p.m. in the evening, an argument started. The defendant admits that she had been drinking, but she wasn't drunk. She was angry with the host, and this is what started the argument. They had the argument because he owed her £300, and he was saying that he doesn't have the money. She was saying, well, if you don't have £300, how are you able to afford throwing this huge party at your house with all these drinks, all this food, and blah, 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 blah. So that's sort of how the argument started. And then we can see at 10:35, the physical assault actually happened, or the result of the physical assault happened, and we can see him there with the injury to his face. So the defendant later says that the host, the victim, was very drunk and he tried to push her out of the building. She says that she was just acting in defense and she was trying to sort of like protect herself, and one of her rings on her finger caught onto his face and gave him that injury. On the other hand, the victim is saying, yeah, I was a little bit rude when we were having an argument, but she was ruining the party by starting the argument and sort of accusing me of not giving back her money. And the suspect hit me twice, and the second time she deliberately aimed her ring at my eye in order to injure me. So that's the background of the story. And very briefly, I'm going to show you 3 witnesses. And I want you to remember, you are the prosecution. So you're trying to prosecute the defendant, the suspect. You're trying to prosecute her. So which of these 3 witnesses are the most trustworthy? Let's have a look. Our first witness is Elliot. He is the victim's brother and the defendant's ex. So think about, is there a bias here? He was in the same room at the time of the event, and this is his statement. I had seen the defendant drinking all day. She was in a weird mood. She went up to several people and ended up having little arguments. I'll admit I had been drinking most of the day as well. When the attack happened, I was about 2 meters away. She was screaming and shouting. She started to push the victim and then finally smacked him with the back of her hand. Straight away, there was blood everywhere. So have a think about his characteristics and what he's saying. Is he reliable? Is he trustworthy? Is he objective? So he's the victim's brother and the suspect's ex. So think about that. Is that going to have an impact on the validity of his witness? And also he admits to have been drinking all day. And let's remember the party started at 2 o'clock and the assault happened after 10 o'clock. So it's a long stretch of time. He'd probably been drinking for quite a long time. So is he reliable? Our second witness is Chris. Chris was a +1 of a guest. So he wasn't directly invited. He had no prior relationship with the victim or the defendant. He didn't know any of them. He was just a guest +1. He was outside the premises at the time of the attack. This is his statement. I tagged along to this party with my friend who said it would be okay even if I didn't know anyone. I was outside at the time, but I heard screaming and the blonde girl hit the guy in the face. She said he owed her money. It was the defendant. Straight away after, she started crying and saying, "What have I done?" I think she knew that she had gone too far. So let's think about how valid, how trustworthy this second witness is. And then finally, the third witness, which may or may not be me in the picture there. The third witness is a good friend of the defendant and is a former colleague of the victim. So again, this person knows both of them. I arrived at the party about 10:45 and everyone was upset. The defendant was crying and looked really vulnerable. The victim didn't seem bothered at all. He was laughing and joking. He'd been trying to wind her up all day and was bullying her. He'd been pushing her about when this all happened. I think she just caught her ring on his head by mistake. The defendant is a really nice person. She's caring and sweet and would never hurt someone on purpose. Again, let's think about whether this is a reliable witness. First off, the very first thing she says is she arrives at 10:45. This is after the assault happened. So she isn't actually a witness to the assault itself. And it's really interesting that later she says things like, he had been pushing her about when this happened. How does she know? She wasn't there. I think she just caught her ring on his head by mistake. Again, she didn't see that, so she can't actually make that claim. And also, we know that she's a good friend of the defendant, so potentially she's going to be biased there as well. So just something to think about. Out of those three, who do you think is the most reliable, most trustworthy of our witnesses? And that's the kind of thing you might be doing in law. And yeah, I think that's about it.
I think it was Chris. That's what I'd go for. I'd go for Chris.
I think so. I think he's the most unbiased one, isn't he?
Well, I think that was really interesting. I've learned lots about that. I've learned I wouldn't make a very good witness at all because I didn't get any of the questions right after you'd asked that. But just to pick up on a few questions we've got after that. When you're talking about the business, you talked about the combination of subjects, so combining it with someone else. Is there an advantage to doing that, or would you say it's better to do pure business?
Yeah, so I'm going to give one of those annoying answers, which is it depends. But I'll expand on that. So if you're absolutely sure that you want to go into a certain area of business, say digital marketing, then definitely do the straight digital marketing course, because you already know that's your passion, and you already know that that's where you're going to get, the most out of your 3 years of education. So there's no point in doing another degree if you already know that your heart is set on that. If, however, you do want to keep your options open, you're not 100% sure what sort of field you want to go down, then doing a joint degree is really beneficial. You might do a module that you'd never thought about, and then suddenly you're in the lectures and you're like, actually, I think this is what I want to do in the future. So it might be a really good way to help guide you into the career you want to do. So yeah, if you're not sure, it might be a good idea to do a combined degree. Saying that though, not every combination is out there, and not just at our university, but in all universities. You can't combine every single subject. You can't completely mix and match. Like, it would be really hard, for example, if you wanted to do, half a degree in maths and half a degree in ancient Egyptian literature. Like there's no university that's going to give you that degree. So what I will say is that even if you do just one subject, like you do just business, you're still going to have the opportunity to choose some of the modules. So some of them are compulsory, but some of them you've got the option to choose as well. So you can still have some choice there.
Okay, that's great. And I was thinking, when you were talking about the business course, you said it included economics, and I remember doing economics at school, and I found it quite mathematical, which is probably why I didn't like it, because I wasn't that good at maths. And I just wondered what the entry requirements were for the kind of the business courses in terms of maths and English, etc.
Yeah, of course. So for the business courses, as you say, that there is a little bit of maths involved in some of them, especially with certain modules. In terms of general entry requirements, for A-level students, I believe it's it's 2 Bs and a C. And we don't have any subject requirements in particular when it comes to business or with law. The law requirements are slightly different, but for business courses, it tends to be BBC. There may be some slight differences between some of the courses. Your application will probably stand out a little bit more if one of your A levels is business or economics or accounting or maths. It might make your application stand out a little bit more, but it's not essential.
Okay.
You will need a pass in maths GCSE, so that is essential. But in terms of A levels, there's no specific requirement, but there's some that might boost you a little bit.
Okay, lovely. And then just a few questions around law. You mentioned that you can go and do a BA and a BSc or a BSc in law at certain institutions, and you may decide to do that because you think, well, I don't want to be a lawyer or a barrister. But what happens if while you're doing that course and you reach the end of it, you suddenly say, well, actually, I think I do want to become a lawyer or a barrister? Is there still a route you can go down to become a lawyer or a barrister?
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, you don't even have to do a BA law degree. You could do a degree in biology or a degree in fine art or history, and you can still become a lawyer. So it just means you've got a bit of extra study to do. So at the minute, there's something called the GDL, which is a conversion course. It's a law conversion course. And I say at the minute because it is changing slightly. So in a few years' time, the students who are watching this right now, the situation will be a little bit different, but the premise will be the same. You can do a conversion course, and that consists of some modules and exams where you've got a short course to top up all your legal knowledge. And this course is for students who don't have any background in law. So it doesn't matter whether you know loads about law or you don't. You're going to get the same level of education. And by the end of it, as long as you pass, by the end of it, you're going to be on the same level as somebody who did a law degree. So yeah, absolutely, there's a way for you to become a lawyer.
There's a way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a requirement to get into that? Like, do you have to get a certain level of degree, or can you go in with any degree?
Yeah, so in terms of the subject, it can be any degree. Like I say, we've got like some of our students who are doing the conversion course at our university. Some of them, a lot of them have done history and English. Those are quite popular subjects for lawyers to have a background in. But we've got some who've done a biology degree or a maths degree or a geography degree. And you wouldn't at first think of those subjects as being sort of like law related subjects, but actually the law is everywhere. When it comes to, say, like creating medicine, like the COVID vaccine, for example, it's not just about the biology, the chemistry, the science of the vaccine itself, it's about the legal requirements as well. So actually, if you're interested in that sort of thing, in patenting, in that sort of thing, having a background in biology and then a degree in law can be really, really useful for you. In fact, that would be better than if you just did a law degree, if that's the sort of thing you want to go into.
Yeah, I often think about, I'm a big fan of popular music, and you don't think about maybe law leading you to a career in popular music, and yet it can in many ways.
Definitely.
Because there's contracts, etc.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a very broad subject, isn't it, which opens you up to lots of different career possibilities.
Exactly.
Sana, that's been really useful. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Thank you for sharing those with us.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you and your I hope the students learned something new and interesting today.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. And if people want any more information about the University of Law specifically, they can go to your website. There are lots of universities, obviously, who offer law degrees, and many of them are featured on the Uni4Me website as well. But again, thank you for this afternoon. It's been really useful.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, definitely.